Hello there friends, Steve here. Hope you're alright. I'm out for a walk through the nice garden. I'm out barefoot. There's horse flies about and other insects. It's warm, humid, and I guess I'm going to be walking about 10-15 miles at the moment. It's this horrible gravel, but never mind. The field's always nice. I've got a bit of field here. Every time I get a chance to walk on the grass, it's wonderful. It's refreshing, healing. I don't wear shoes as much as possible, you know, which is nearly all of the time except for winter. When my feet begin to stick to the floor, then I think maybe that's just the time to stay inside. You know, there's no real need to wander around in the snow, you know. If then probably run or make some shoes. But yeah, I mean, Cody Lundin does it, doesn't he? I've seen some people do some incredible stuff barefoot. I remember when I first started barefooting, it's like barehanding, you know. In some cultures, I suppose, they wear gloves more, you know, even in the sun and stuff, for vanity reasons. But obviously people say, well, gloves is different to shoes. You know, you wear gloves to keep your hands warm or protect them. You know, you can't walk in shoes, not for miles. Cut your feet to pieces. I used to look at people in the street and think, why aren't you wearing shoes? Can't you be like everybody else, or can't you afford shoes? I just couldn't understand. Just couldn't understand why anybody would want to just not have shoes. What's the point? I tried it for a while. In the summer times and stuff, I used to then walk around without shoes on, and it was quite nice. But then after a while, after I kind of got a little bit fed up with society, domestication, civilness, I got a little bit tired of people who were calling them civil human beings were not acting that civil and not seeming to seem reason, seemed to be coming further and further away from nature, their own nature. And I don't like to judge people, but obviously I can observe people. I can make my own judgments that lead to my actions. And so then it's a matter of finding things out for myself to say, okay, I'm not going to wear shoes. I'm just going to walk around barefoot like I was created. First thing I noticed, especially when walking on a pavement or a road, was the sound, the banging noise. Boo, boo, boo. It was going all the way up from the heel, up to the knee, up to the hip, through the spine, back of the neck, into the ears. Try it. You walk flat-footed down the street, you hear that banging noise. And so, simply the sound was the first thing that indicated to me that I was walking wrong. I started walking different. I'll just zoom down and show you. It'll be upside down. Sort of more on the toes. You know, you hit the toe down first and then put the heel slightly down. Or you don't even have to, you can walk like that. Like a ballet dancer. There's no need, you know, I can walk fast. So anyway, I'm not bragging around, it just amazes myself. I'm amazed at the design of the human body. We've all got one. People say to me, oh, I can't walk barefoot, but I can guarantee the main reason is because you're not walking properly, because, you know, since the day we're born, we're put into shoes. The heel doesn't bend, and you can't put your toe down first. The heel kind of gets there first. So because we've got these then shoes, that cushions the heel. Then when we walk barefoot, we forget that we're actually, it's like walking on your kneecaps when you walk on your heels. As you can see, I'm walking barefoot down this gravel path. This gravel's quite fresh. It's about the worst thing you can walk on. And if you walk properly like a cat, and not like an elephant, in fact elephants are pretty, they've got bare feet, and they can, so it's really just imperfect walking. It's just incorrect technique, really. Is that a car coming? They're going to be coming round here. No. Strange seeing cars in the middle of the garden. So it's all about technique, like a lot of things, really. Of course, there's, of course shoes protect your feet, but there's great advantages not to having shoes on. For starters, when you're out on the moors and your feet get wet, if you keep your shoes on, you get foot rot. Even in the snow, when you can't wiggle your toes and you basically just got a clump of a foot at the bottom, then you don't have a lot of contact to your feet, so it becomes frozen more quickly. There's a lot of things, a lot of different things. The fact that your feet then are cooler, so that brings your body temperature down, and regulates your body properly, so that your feet are cold and wet, but the rest of your body tends to be warm. I used to get a lot of trouble with sweaty feet when I wore shoes, and now it's just like I wouldn't put gloves on, I wouldn't put shoes on, even to work. When I'm chopping wood or sawing wood, people are saying, oh, you should put shoes on. But look at most people's shoes. Most people are wearing little training shoes, right? So or even just work boots that are not steel toe caps or not even properly made, not really decent boots with steel toe caps, if you're not wearing that thing, if you put a chainsaw or a saw or a drill into your foot, the shoe won't stop it. In fact, all that happens is it takes away the sensitivity of your foot, so you don't notice as quickly. And then all of the bits of the shoe, all of that sweat and that stuff that's got in your socks and everything just gets ripped through that scar. Then you have to cut the shoe off after the scar's been there, which is often the worst thing, pulling the, so you have to cut the shoe off. It's, yeah. And some people say all the time, oh, you can't go around the world without shoes on, you can't go in, you can actually, there's no laws, I don't think, to anywhere where there's shoes not allowed barefoot not allowed where shoes allowed. If you go into a restaurant, people say maybe it's unhygienic, but I mean the shoes, you don't wash your shoe every day, and as you know, if you're barefooted, you use every little opportunity you can to clean your feet in a puddle of water or wiping it on the grass, and your feet just clean all the time, really, unless if you're walking over mud for all the time, they're muddy all the time. And you get all of those, like, as you're walking on the grass, you're getting all the vitamins of the soil and everything, You don't stand on glass or nails, because when you're walking properly and you're not just like thumping down, when you're actually walking properly, it tickles. You know how sensitive your feet are. You don't lose that sensitivity even when you've been walking on pavement for years. It's oh, we've got a push biker. Hello. Push bikes are pretty good devices, and I always ride barefoot. You get these push bikers with all their fashion on, the skin tight stuff and that, and there's me with my hippie gear and my long hair sailing past them barefoot. Because if you use your ankles, your heels and stuff, like you would use your wrist, because Because this is, you know, we're walking on this bit of a hand all the time, you know, where actually you should be walking on your tips of your toes more. And that way then you can push like that when you're riding a push bike, and you can get loads more speed out of it. And that massive muscle down the back of your leg, your calf, is never really in use when you're walking, only when you walk upstairs or uphill. But normally when you're walking, well, most modern people, when they walk, it's like a duck sort of thing, you know, the heel comes down first and then we fall. So we're not really walking, we're just falling on stilts. When you walk barefoot, you can't do that. You just can't do that. You wouldn't make it that far. So then after a few years of walking barefoot, my back problems went away. I'm quite a tall person, so a lot of tall people suffer with like lower back pain and stuff, knee aches and all of that. And I had a lot of troubles with my knees, and been in a few crashes and things and beat myself up, and never really healed from it until I started walking barefoot, and then just sort of a correct posture. Amazing at what it does to your entire constitution, your own constitution. And so the barefoot thing is for me symbolic as well for mass groupthink. You really have to break away from groupthink if you want to do something like just simply take your shoes off these days. And people scorn at me riding push bike barefoot, you know. Got another push bike. So it's a mad world. Hello. They must think I'm a bit weird, walking barefoot through the middle of a field with a rucksack and a camera pointing at myself, talking. But it's incredibly nice because I know that you're there in time and space. The other thing about barefoot walking though is that people don't see you as a threat. They might see you as a hippie, but that's one reason why you walk around with a little smile, because if you don't smile, people think you can't afford shoes or you've escaped from a mental asylum. So if you walk barefoot, you know, promote it with a smile. And it's amazing how, you know, years ago, I mean, I've got long red hair, and you know, little kids used to point across and say, "Mummy, mummy, that man's got long hair," or "that man's a woman," or something like that. And nowadays, you know, I mean, I've still got the same hair, but the little kids say, "That man's got no shoes." And the interesting response from the parents is, yes, it's healthy, which is nice. It's nice that the people don't say, "Oh yeah, he's a hippie, he can't afford shoes." You know, it's the opposite. I think it obviously comes from your posture, that you walk like a cat and that you smile and stuff. And you know, you're not the... I don't like to be the victim. I don't like to portray myself as the victim. You know, I don't like to pity myself and put it on others. So the walking barefoot thing can sometimes cast that kind of that message to people that, you know, in a way it can be like, I sometimes feel like a dead man. It's nice, you know, I'm like the dead man with no shoes, just walking along without a care, you know, in this supposed living man's world, you know, but everybody's at work and the nature's free. So I don't know whether it's dead or alive, but it seems to be like a different world when you haven't got shoes on. And people say, you know, yeah, that's what I was saying 1 hour back, to the multitude of people saying, "Oh, you can't do something. You can't, oh, you can't do that. You can't do this. That's not allowed. That's not possible. That doesn't make sense." If everybody did that, you know, The law is the law. You know, the specialists working on those things, you shouldn't think you're any better. But the thing is, after looking on the internet and, you know, you would expect that, you know, people say, oh, you can't trust what you see on the internet. Well, it goes for the TV and everything else in the world. You just can't, you shouldn't trust. But it's interesting when you look on there to see if you can find something about Barefoot. I mean, it's getting more and more, but it's a lot less than I would ever imagine. You know, people sort of like, whoa, new wonder middle, you know, new wonder thing, new design, new idea, walk barefoot, equalise yourself, balance yourself out. Like as if it's some new trend. And then the idea that someone would want to force me into shoes now, at my age, you have to wear shoes. Oh, you do need to wear shoes. You do need to wear shoes. You do need a license to walk barefoot. I'm not going to swear on this video yet, but yeah. And so that's the world, but it's good because, like I say, I take my shoes off. And it's surprising how many people are interested in the idea of somebody doing what was previously impossible and just looking like ease with it. And that's the way things should be. It's the way law should be. You know, we've all spent far too much time questioning and re-questioning the bureaucracy of the government, you know, the paperwork, the system, to try and find out how it works. And the foundation of any system has to be reason, otherwise it doesn't exist, you know. So the first major thing to do will be just to simply ask, what is reason? There's reasons, you know, but not often. They're more like excuses, justifications, but real reasons. Mathematical formulas. If you think about something for long enough, like think about the question, why should another man stop you doing something? Now there are reasons, there is maybe a reason, but why should somebody stop you doing something? Not even going to answer that one for you, but you know, the questioning of it's more important, because you come to the idea of what law really means and what it's really there for. And I'm not talking about law, because when I say law, people think, oh yeah, you know, rules and regulations built from a government in order to keep a society controlled. It's not that. Law is you know, it's like reason, the way things work. 1 + 2 = 3. 3 - 2 = 1. It's obvious. But these obvious things, they need working out by wisdom and intelligence over time. We write them down. They change a little with the circumstances of society, the invention of new machines. But generally, all law emanates from logic and reason. And then it's ranked through authority, because obviously to grant authority, you have to, if you have laws, you have to grant authority, don't you? So somebody can actually have more power than somebody else to enforce them. In a system of ranking, where rules come first. You've got two systems, like I often relate to in a classroom. You know, imagine you're a teacher of a first day in a special classroom full of difficult kids, teenagers. You've got kind of two choices. One is you can kind of get control, obedience, you know, get them all to follow your rules somehow, either persuasion, coercion, force, aggression, whatever. Through repetition, you can get them teenagers, them kids, them people, whoever it is, to be under your control. Punishments, whatever, at the risk of their life or something. The other option, when you're in that classroom of kids there, is to try and find a way of empowering each one of them individually, finding out what they love, finding out what their passion is, and how that fits in with the whole group. Because if one individual is like denied of his passion, then it's a war cry. And it might be just as something as like one person wants to walk barefoot, and the big group thinks says, oh, you can't. At that point there, you know, human freedom ceases. Reason ceases. And when reason ceases, the law ceases to exist. That's a maxim at law. I talk a lot about maxims. The government make rules, just like mummy and daddy. Often they don't make sense, they just have to work somehow, like a car rolling down the street. It doesn't matter, it just has to carry those passengers. Of course, you know, of course we can perpetuate motion through time and space, but that doesn't mean to say it's successful or that it's right or anything. So I hope to set an example, walking barefoot maybe, and all of the other little things that I do, just to say, you know, I am me. There's others like me maybe, who are me. They are they, I am me. And that's one of the big problems in society. There's so many people who want it all to be the same. They want to play the vanity game, you know, buying fashion, cars, labels. That's okay, it's a game. People like that, you know, they look down on me, but it's their perspective because they're looking upwards in a mirror. It's lovely to be walking out here. In a way, I think my only wish is that there were more people with more time. Well, there's enough people, but I wish those people had more time. And just this whole putting on the work boots for somebody else to get in that little bit of money to buy a life that's overpriced. You know, what happens is the devious, clever people are born into the right families and given the right knowledge and the right tricks and the right inheritance, claim to own land. You know, they make a claim of land that they call their own, get a boss to manage it, pay that boss, who then pays the workers, who then sell them goods to the poor, basically, or to the lower class, you know. And then the rich people make all the money from the poor people. And those who are on welfare, you know, who haven't got a job because the rich person's, like, you know, outsourced all of the business and there's no local work, he then gives a little bit of money back to the poor and calls it benefits, and then casts this field of shame over those who can't find a job. You know, this world's been mechanized, robotized since years. You know, we're supposed to be advanced human beings. You can see how one farmer ploughs an entire field on his own. Where, oh where, are the profits? Yeah. Anyway, folks, my arm's aching holding this camera, and I'm just going to wrap it up at 25 minutes. I don't know where I am. I've got a compass with me, so yeah. Have a good time anyway, and see you later. Cheerio.